This is part 2 of a 3-part podcast.
Hi, this is Mark. There are a lot of reasons to get angry these days, but I prefer to focus on the positive things that we each can do to make this world a better place. The book, Building a Better World in Your Backyard, Instead of Being Angry at Bad Guys, is a great resource for just that. Instead of throwing my arms up in frustration at governments or big corporations, there's a list of ideas that we each can tackle to affect change. Information about this book and other resources can be found at Permies.com.
I don't know.
I did want to emphasize that
it's easy in the bootcamp. It's not tough. It's a lot loaded with experiences, but it's light on like exhaustion.
I would say yeah. And now there are certain times of the year that are tougher than others. The worst heat of the summer is tough to adjust for anybody, especially if they are, like when I lived in the city, I would rush from one air-conditioned building to the next, in the heat of the summer. Now it's a very different environment over there, and of course I'm acclimated to this place now, so I relish the heat of the summer, and I always say, like, sure, it's going to be 100 degrees when you're standing out there baking in the sun. When you go in the shade, it's 10 degrees cooler. It feels really nice. And then if a breeze comes along, not only is it 10 degrees cooler because you're in the shade, but now it's like 15 degrees cooler than that because there's a breeze coming along. It's a very arid climate around here, and it feels lovely, certainly compared to where I came from, which was, you walk outside in the middle of August, and somebody has thrown a hot, wet blanket on your shoulders, and you're carrying that around with you all day long, until you go to another air-conditioned building. What
does the boot camp do when the temperature gets to 95 degrees or warmer?
Slushies. And if it's a summer event, then we have the kiddie pool out there as well, and you can dunk your feet in there, or I like to put my hands in there and slosh them around a little bit, or even dunk my head or my hat in the water.
Or your whole body. You can just get in there and dunk yourself, speaking from experience.
Yeah. So taking a dunk in the pool if you need to.
So it's actually an aluminum trough, so it's not galvanized and it's not plastic. Mm-hmm. And what we do is we fill it up with fresh water, and then we empty that out within, 24 hours. We don't leave a bunch of gross water in there.
Yeah, the water that was from the previous day is used on the plants that morning. Yeah. Especially if it's down there, because we have the rhubarb we want to take care of, and there's grains and stuff like that. And trees, of course, that appreciate all the extra water.
So we have indoor spaces that are cool, and people, and a lot of times if it starts to get hot, we can do that. And
slushies.
And then
slushies.
But if you're going to be outside, then we do the slushies. And now I think our slushy game is strong.
Yeah. There's so that for those of you who don't know, the slushies, it's basically shaved ice with some sort of flavor that goes on top of it. We've had everything from these stevia flavors that Paul has to cherry extract, or not extract, but it was like distilled cherry juice, like a concentrated cherry juice to flavor it, and that was just like strictly natural cherry juice. Like he squeezed it and then cooked it down a little bit, and that stuff was added to the slushies. Absolutely delicious. And then I had a root beer stevia slushy. So if you want something a little different, you could totally do that. It works. Yeah. Oh, and then there's switchel, and there's the switchel recipes that were also added to that stuff. So there are options. But anyhow,
I think the thing is that when it gets hot here, I think people
sorted out.
People look forward to it getting hot. I sure hope it gets hot today, because I'm tasted up for slushies already.
I'm in the mood for a slushie today. Come on, son.
So I do think that we have a lot of stuff to make it much more comfortable if you're going to be outside, but we tend to do projects indoors when it gets really hot. And but yeah, the slushies come out, and then suddenly there's a lot of slushy action, and we do slushies once an hour, every hour, but that's kind of assuming you're working outside. But a lot of times, if you're going to be working outside because you want to get the slushies, people tend to be like, oh, don't we have to water the garden? And so that's usually very cool. It's usually about 20 degrees cooler when you're watering the garden with that 45-degree water.
Blowing and misting all around you,
Yeah. So, I guess the thing I'm trying to say, the thing I want to, emphasize is that if you're going to be part of the boot camp, it's actually quite comfortable. And even if you've been here for months or longer, in the summer, it's still very comfortable. It's not like, then you're keeping up. And it's not like the boot camp works at a breakneck pace ever. We have some people where they look at it as a form of gym alternative, and they're like, hup, 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 hup. And it's like, if you want to do that, you can. Don't expect everybody else to do it. So there's that. But I remember, like, in the wintertime, the other thing is to be...
let's talk about the cold. Everybody's, Montana, isn't that cold over there by the mountains and shit?
I was just looking at the stuff for December of last year. December is typically our coldest month, and for December of last year, almost every day. In fact, the problem was that we had a BB that said you got to do it at a time when the temperature never gets above 40 degrees outside, and there were. December, the coldest month of the year last year, there were 3 days where it got over 40. And then, and so we changed it. I can't remember what we changed it to, but most of the days, like out of the 31 days of December last year, I think that on 25 of them, the nighttime temperature was like 28.
Whoa.
And it was in the 20s. And then there were a few days where it was like in the teens or even into the single digits. And that was as cold as it got for December, our coldest month of the year. And the high temperature is generally above freezing, but just a pinch, but sometimes not.
I just want to add in a personal anecdote. So I'm one of the people who likes to live in a tent as much as possible. And this past year, I ended up, right at the beginning of February and into early March, I had visited relatives on the East Coast. And that was the only time where I wasn't regularly staying in the tent. So generally speaking, I was in a tent here in Montana year-round, about 10 and a half. Okay. Oh, and this is the point where Paul is heading out of the room for, to observe a berm. So I stayed in the tent. I did a little bit of math and calendar checking, and I was in the tent for about 10 and a half months of the year. There was a time where I did stay in the solarium because there were a couple things going on. The temperature was in the single digits. Maybe it reached the teens during the day. And this, I'm talking about late March. But another thing that I rationalized this by saying, well, the cats are going to be really cold. So let me go ahead and start a fire in the solarium, because we have one of the cat aquariums in there, the kitty aquarium called the Catty Shack. So the Catty Shack is in there. And I wanted to make sure that the cats had a warm place to stay. So I ended up starting a fire and staying in the solarium, and that was for about a week. But apart from that, I was able to stay in my tent. I'm one of those weirdos who I want a space of my own, first off. I want to have my own domicile. And then one of the coolest things about my situation is that the tent that I have, it's one of those big canvas bell tents. And I have openings next to where the front door is, and the cats learned how to get into the tent. And I was like, hey, if you can figure out how to get in here, you can hang out in here. And so there were a couple dimwits that just couldn't hack it. They couldn't figure out how to make it work. But the ones that did, it was Black Spark, it was Fern, it was Donkey, who was my number one, who wherever she is, I miss her terribly. And then there was Puff. And Puff, as far as I know, she's still over at the lab right now. Maybe she hadn't made it over the past couple months. Don't know. But But it was those 4 ladies, and what they would do is they would basically, like, I made a sandwich out of my sleeping bag and my wool blankets, and they would, at the same time every night, you know, they knew, oh, he's going to bed. It was just like when I feed him breakfast in the morning. It's like, okay, it's bedtime. So they would come in, they would literally climb inside the blankets and the sleeping bag with me and sleep with me at night and keep everybody warm. And it was funny because sometimes the cats wouldn't be getting along, and they would have a fight inside the sleeping bag while I'm there. And I'm like, I got to stick my leg up and I'm like, whoa, ladies. So, whoa, cool it, chill. But we were able to cohabitate. And again, finally, I guess to cap this off, I don't know if you have ever had to do this or had the opportunity for it, but when my alarm would go off at 6 a.m. in the morning, and then the other cats would wake up, and then all of a sudden all 4 of the cats start purring all at once. You wake up at 6 a.m. and you turn the alarm off, and they're all like, blah, 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 you know, they're doing their purring noise, whatever you want to call it. That's just the loveliest thing ever. There's Donkey curled up in my armpit right next to me, and like everybody else is like, you know, it's just an awesome thing. Anyhow, that's the magic of living in a tent year-round. You have those kinds of experiences with the cats. That's just where I wanted to go. Yeah, so
I kind of feel like with the heat or the cold, it's a bit of an IQ test. And so if anybody is kind of like, you know, oh no, then, you know, yeah, they're not going to come out here. But I remember.
I got to say, just like making jam, or just like dehydrating stuff, or driving the tractor for the first time, you realize what you're capable of. If you give yourself the opportunity to go for it, and you do, you realize, wow, this ain't no thing. I can actually handle this. Yeah. And that's what encouraged me to be able to do it year round. It was like, oh, October's here before I even knew it. Oh, wow, it's November something? Holy, wow, Christmas is next week. Like, oh, hey, and it's my birthday in February. All right, hey, I'm gonna spend my birthday in a tent. It's, and it's the coldest part of the year. Yeah. But you realize that, wow, I can do this. I've built it into my routine. I know how the systems work. I can protect myself, whether it's the extreme heat or the extreme cold. You put yourself to the test, and you realize, yeah, I can make it happen. And if you learn what your limits are as well. I'm not saying you have to, it's not a death march to stay in a tent year round. That's not what I'm talking about. It's the idea that you learn what your limits are, but you also test your limits at the same time. And your world expands every time you test those limits. And that's, for me, that's what staying in a tent year-round was about, whether it was the worst part of the summer, because it cools off at night around here. There's no doubt about it.
Would you call it biophilic, staying in a tent?
Completely. I mean, now another thing that happens up here is that's my sleeping room, So it's like I don't spend all day in the tent. So I'm sure it, in the summertime it becomes sweltering hot inside that tent, but that's not when I'm in there. But at night, I can tell, oh yeah, my blankets still feel warm. There's something going on during the day that heats things up. But biophilic, you can hear the crickets outside. You hear the wind blowing through the trees. You hear like deer walking around out there every once in a while. You walk outside your tent to go pee, and you look up at night, and if it's a clear night, it is spellbinding, because you see the different colors of the nebula of space in your above your head. You look up, and it's a mantle of stars up there. There's bands of violet and purple and navy blue of the rest of the universe out there. I mean, you can't, I don't know how to go closer than that to a rural lifestyle. I mean, that's what works for me. And there you go.
Okay, so
I could ramble about living.
A couple things about the cold. One, it's just layers. It's really all it is, and to just be somewhat prepared, and then you are perfectly comfortable all day long outside. Well, an all day, it's 4-hour blocks. Mm-hmm. So,
We have rocket mass heaters all over the place, including the places where we would be doing boot tasks anyway. So whether it's the classroom or the wood shop or the house, the solarium, the library, they all have a heater of their own. Yeah. So wherever we're going to be doing it, the place is warmed up. Yeah.
Sure, but I mean, like, we do work outside in the winter too, but generally if it's going to be, brittle cold out during the day, we tend to find projects inside. There's tons of stuff that needs to be done indoors. Yeah. But what I want to do is I want to say two important things for the cold. One is I have this strong memory of Magdalene. And so Magdalene dressed. I mean, she's a very slim, handsome woman, and so she would dress in like fashiony things, which I don't understand that, but she had to be fashiony all the time, and it's like, okay, all right. And it was kind of permaculture fashion, I guess, but the funny thing is that she would have these fashiony boots that were not good for the winter at all, but she needed to wear those. Yeah. But we have supplied over boots for everybody, because I kind of feel like, that if you can get your feet to stay warm, everything else pretty much is obvious and easy. So all day, all winter long, maybe even on some days that weren't even that cold, she was always wearing the over boots, and wherever she went, it went clomp, clomp. You could hear Magdalene approaching, clomp, 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 because she's wearing these over boots, because she knows that she's wearing her fashiony, fancy boots. And so I just kind of thought that was a bit hilarious. But the thing is that if you're going to be outdoors for 4 hours at a time, and let's say it is bitter cold for some reason, which we rarely ever do anything outside when it's bitter cold, but let's say it is, then it can be done, and it's not that difficult. You're not going to be wearing, like parkas for going to the South Pole or something like that. It's nothing that extreme. And the next thing is that if you, like most winters, it does not get below zero. And but last winter it got to 25 below zero. The first winter we were here, it got to 26 below zero. But, we've had a lot of winters where it's like, it got down to 12 below. But there's, still a lot of winters where it didn't get below zero. Or it got to exactly zero. And that was the coldest. But that's a cold moment usually at dawn. And it's the coldest part of the day. But the thing is that if you can go out and put 2 hours outside on a day where it got to 25 below, and granted that was at dawn, so maybe at 10 o'clock in the morning it's closer to 10 below or something like that. What I'm trying to say is that if you go out there and you can be comfortable in bitter cold like that and spend 2 hours out there, then you can come back and have that sensation like I could have gone another 2 hours without a problem. I don't know. That is a soul-feeding thing. Like I'm going to put that on my personal death resume. Like I'm going to note that and write that down. That is something that I did that I impressed me with. And it's like there was an IQ test out there and I passed. And other people, many other people, would have failed. Mostly because they wouldn't have even tried. Like, I could never do that.
That's where I come from. It's, people don't, in general, people avoid testing themselves, whether, like, in a lot of extremes. And we're just talking about temperature extremes here, whether it's the heat of the summer or this cold winter that you're talking about. People think that they can't hack it, but they've never given themselves a chance to try and find out for sure, or see what the systems that are in place that help them do it that much easier. So I would say give yourself a chance to test it. Test yourself in a lot of different ways, and not just temperature, but just in life in general, so you know what your own limits are. People are much more capable of things than they think they are, in general. And a lot of people, like one of the first things I say to new boots is that, you know your limits better than anybody else. But that, and then in my head I'm like, well, but that doesn't mean you've tested your limits. So this kind of environment when we're outside, it's like a Saturday every day. You're outside doing stuff in the yard. A lot of people don't have a chance to try that out. Whether it's temperatures, whether it's digging a hole or a ditch, or using a tool for the first time. They are like, no, I can't do that. I've never done that before. Oh, I'm going to break something, or oh, I'm going to get hurt. Not true. Not true all the time. Give yourself a chance to try it out first.
Along those lines, I have when I am here, I'm going to just talk about base camp. I'm going to limit myself to base camp. I built the Turtle Lot. I built Serviceberry Terrace. I built Submarine Access Road. The rhubarb, nearly, I would say probably here at base camp, 90% of the rhubarb that is growing here and doing well, I planted that. There are things that I see that I did, and when I look at that, it is a soul building thing to see it. I mean, there's other stuff, and there's stuff where I didn't. I mean, the rocket mass heater that's inside the library, I built that. There's a lot of rocket mass heaters where I didn't build it, but I was the primary influence on the design, and I was very involved in bickering with people about the design. I don't know. There's stuff like that, but I don't know. It's part of my role at okay, there's 20 people involved in this thing, and I need to juggle, a dozen simultaneous projects or something, and other things. But there's things where I did it. I made that thing, and what I'm trying to say is that there is a substantial thing that feeds my soul about that, and so when I walk around, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say, Stephen, there's been a bunch of stuff that you have now built and created that you see, and so I mean, surely there's a bunch of stuff that is, I don't know, your builds, your things, your creations, your substantive contribution here that makes this place kind of yours.
The sunshades.
Oh, Bob.
Yeah. So I was primarily the person, with the exception of this past. So the first Bob line that went up, so the one that Bob is hanging off of, I'm the person who climbed up the tree and the pole. And every time I look up, I still remember climbing up that tree and lashing myself around that tree with ropes and going up there and this 2-foot long drill bit, going through the tree. When it comes to the pole in the backyard, I had to put those spiky boots on. Not even the boots, they're the things you tie to your legs that have spikes on them, the lineman's gear. So you've got a belt harness thing on that loops around the pole with a single strand of rope. And you get safeties on and stuff like that. But then you have these spikes that are strapped to your boots, and then you dig the spikes into the pole, flip the rope up, and then reposition your feet, and then flip the rope up, and that's the only thing that is holding you as you climb up that pole. I will never forget that experience in my entire life. Now, I did that because there was really nobody else who was interested in doing it. Much like driving the dump truck. Nobody wanted to drive that either. And I was like, oh yeah, I taught people how to drive CDL vehicles when I was back in Baltimore. Sure, I can drive this dump truck down the hill. it's exhilarating and it's terrifying all at the same time. Because, yeah, it's a big machine. And I was like, okay, so I have a dump truck and I have a big trailer on the back, and there's a big excavator on that trailer right now. And so I'm supposed to bring all that down the mountain and not die. So first time I did that, yeah, I felt my dick was this big. Because I made it down there, the excavator made it to base camp. And again, it made it there. I didn't die. And it was tremendous. Yeah, to have that kind of experience in my life, yeah. Again, I put myself to the test. I didn't freak out. I leaned back on my training when I became panicked a little bit, but that's what the training is for. And my life is expanded because of that. My life is expanded because of dozens of things here. So, yeah, the bob lines, even something I see as trivial as the wood burn signs that I've made that people comment about. Right. Or I lashed together a clothes drying rack in the solarium, and there are no metal fasteners in there at all. And it's all, and people are like, "Wow, who did that?" It's I did that. That was a nest project thing, I just put that together on a Sunday, and wow, I never did that before. And, maybe you just never had the opportunity to do it. So, but now I've done that, and I'm like, I made my first stool without power tools ever here, and that's pretty awesome. Furniture, I made my first pieces of furniture here. So many little things that, you can walk around, or since I'm the high commander, I end up introducing people, giving them the nickel tour as they go through base camp for the first time. And I'm like, okay, there's this thing over here, there's this thing over here. Oh yeah, all the hydrants that I helped install, digging pits and then putting hydrants in. I did plumbing for the first time here. Like legitimate plumbing, where you have just the metal pieces that you somehow have to link together, and then you turn the water on and water flows through it. And wow, I was responsible for that. Those are the kinds of experiences, and dozens of things I can walk up and down the driveway in base camp and point them out to other people, and oh yeah, we took care of this, and I took care of this. The fact that I was able to contribute to these things that people are benefiting from. The first version of all those lights that go along the driveway that light up when the motion activated solar lights. People use those every single day, and especially in the wintertime. They turn out to be very, very useful during the winter events. So, yeah, I guess my own personal mark is on a lot of things, but it's not just about I don't necessarily want to take credit for all that, because it is sort of a contribution to the whole of what goes on here. I mean, the really monumental stuff, whether it is a rocket mass heater that's built or the root cellar that's being built over at the lab, those are the things that I feel like I help contribute to in a small way. It's almost like the things like the clothing rack or the lights, they make it easier for people who really know what they're doing to come here and do stuff and really wow the rest of the world. So I know how to run a rocket mass heater. I've never built one on my own. Eventually it's going to happen. It just hasn't happened yet. I've met plenty of people who have done that, and I've been their cheerleader, or I've brought them their supplies that they needed, or, I did the ATI testing, or, temperature measuring or whatever. I've done a bunch of ancillary things around the outskirts of a really monumental project. So I really feel like the high commander is a support role for the really earth-shattering or the life-changing things that happen. Whenever there are new boots that show up here that don't know what they're doing, they know even less than I do. I have an opportunity to coach them and teach them how to do stuff. Chopping down a tree, for example, is the thing that I like to teach people how to do, because I don't want anybody to hurt themselves. So it's important it's an important task to teach them how to do it, and And it's gratifying for me to see that somebody who didn't even want to touch a chainsaw is now like, hey, okay, it's my turn. I get to cut a tree down next, you know. And they call it a bar. They don't call it a blade. Pro tip: it's a chainsaw bar.
Okay.
So.
I feel like there's, first of all, what we have here is basically the boot camp is a shitty school. And granted, I mentioned that a lot, and then I've had some people say it's not a shitty school, and it's like, well, no, we don't exactly. It's a shitty school. Like that is the best way to describe what is the boot camp. But I kind of feel like the point is that now that you've been here 2 years, then the substance that you see around you and that is in you, like building a log chair without any fasteners or any glue. And so now this is, you can sit on that chair, you can look at the chair, but it's in you forever. Now, if you go to a worky job in some city and you've been there for 2 years, most of your work that you did has now been flushed down the toilet. Now, I worked in software engineering, so there's almost always a product that I made that they're using, and I might even get to hear people say, this is the best, you know, stuff like that. But for most people in their working job, it's like, you know, what you did 2 years ago was flushed down the toilet 2 years ago, and everything you've done for the last 2 years is all gone. But we need you to show up to work today and do more of the same, and that'll be flushed down the toilet too. It's like, it's not for most people. Now, imagine there are people that have worky jobs where it's like they create a cool thing and they do get to, like, it is a soul-building positive thing. But I kind of feel like that's not very often. And so I kind of feel like the things that you have made or the things that you were involved in making that turned out cool, and granted, there's some stuff that did not turn out cool and it got put on the back burner or we did it over or whatever, but there are artifacts that are left for which you can see them, you can touch them, and they are a cool thing. They are a thing that is not anywhere else in the world. There's stuff like that. And so Stephen's nodding his head, and you can't hear that.
I put extra glue on my brain this morning so it'd stay in place as I was nodding.
Okay, all right. So, all right. The two things that I say to the new boots. One is what Des came up with. And when Des was the high commander, he would tell new boots, for the first 2 weeks, please go with the flow. You've probably read a book, you've probably been someplace else, and you've seen where they did it a different way. And you might be inclined to say, everybody has to stop and listen to me because the way you're doing it is wrong. And it doesn't happen very often, but it has happened from time to time. And so what Des is trying to say is, like, for the first 2 weeks, just go with the flow. It'll all be easier if you just kind of go with the flow. And you'll have questions, and that's great, and we can answer every question that you have. But let's answer it at lunchtime or at dinner or something like that, instead of like, let's stop everything and explain it to me before I go another inch further. Go with the flow for the first couple of weeks, and then it'll make sense later. And so that was the thing that I always say for the new boots, but that's the Des message. The thing that is my message is, and I say 95% or more of the work that you do is for the current boots or the future boots. And so the reason why I feel like I have to say that is that some people were trying to compare the boot camp to the WWOOF program. And the WWOOF program is a very cool program, and it's awesome, and it's great, but it's like you're going to go to generally an organic farm, which we are not a farm, but you're going to go to an organic farm in the WWOOF program, and you're going to do a bunch of stuff to grow organic food, which is super awesome and cool, and then they're going to sell it, and they're going to kick you off the farm because, they don't need you anymore. And it's like, and that's a cool program. That is a cool program. But what the boots are doing is we're going to build boot habitat. We're going to grow food for the future boots. We're going to do all kinds of stuff that is to benefit the boots. You're going to benefit yourself and others that you haven't met yet. And so I just kind of feel like by saying that, it solves potential future problems. And in fact, I came up with that because we had somebody who got sour on us. They were a boot, and they did pretty good as a boot. And then they just kind of got this bee in their bonnet that the WWOOF program is better. And in many ways, the WWOOF program is better. And I think for most people, the boot camp's probably better than the WWOOF program. But, to each their own, I guess. We're different. And, but I think it's a different set of skills. So,
Have you ever wondered whether a particular book was really good or just so-so, and if you could trust the reviews online? When it comes to books related to permaculture, Permies has a large list of reviews for over 100 books. Perhaps you're considering a book for yourself or a friend, or you're just curious about what's out there. Stop by permies.com/book and take a look at the book review grid and read some honest reviews, and hopefully you'll find the next book to add to your collection.
Next up. We stopped the programs for the acre and for the tickets to events. Mm-hmm. And I think it was fucking everything up. And now Clay's giving me this weird look. I mean, Stephen, of course, knows. We've talked about it. But what was happening is that we would say, like, if you come for 8 weeks in the boot camp, we'll give you a ticket to this one summer event, this 2-week event or something like that. And then, so basically, if you attend our shitty school for 8 weeks, we'll allow you to go to this course for 2 weeks. And it's like, so people would do that. But then some people were like, trying to work in, if I was getting paid $20 an hour and I put in 40 hours a week for it, I would come out, blah, blah. And it's kind of like, wow, that's got 18 different things wrong with it. But there was enough people that were doing it. And then the 2 acres thing, I put up a lovely little YouTube video, and Des got his, he got his acre. He was here for 2 years, and he got his acre. And we made a little YouTube video about that. He also got $10,000 for doing 700 BRK posts. And so we kind of talked about that. I thought it was kind of cool, And the commentary from the internet was horrible. And they said all kinds of ugly, nasty things. And I kind of got to thinking, like, for people that are contemplating coming out for the boot camp, is that what they're thinking? I mean, and they're, instead of thinking of, like, I'm going to go to this shitty school and I'm going to build these permaculture experiences. I'm going to grow gardens. I'm going to do natural building, and I'm going to do all this cool permaculture stuff for maybe a couple weeks or maybe a couple months. Instead of having that kind of mentality, they were trying to compare it to working at McDonald's. And it's like, I could go work at McDonald's and then come up with enough money to just buy a ticket. But I could go buy a ticket to anything then. And it's like, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like if you've got a worky job that pays $20 an hour, my guess is that for most people, you might end up with like maybe $50 at the end of the month that you could spend on something. Because, you had your rent and you had all your expenses, and food and whatnot, which is all covered here. And we've recorded podcasts in the past with some of the other boots that have been here that basically said that they had decently paying worky jobs before, but the amount of money they had at the end of the month was less than when they came and they were in the boot camp. Because in the boot camp, they just didn't really have expenses. and then if they did the BRK, which is now named the BEL, then the amount of money that they got from that was so substantial that they ended up cash positive. They when they left the boot camp, they had more money than when they arrived, and so and it was a lot, but I don't know. I guess there's this whole element of like this first thought, like, people are like, and I felt like the whole thing about the acre or about the ticket, the gifted ticket, I kind of feel like those things actually did the opposite, and so it was fucking up the boot camp, and so I have to take it down. I have to take it away. Now I do think, though, that there's other things that can be done that are along those lines, but that's another story for another day. In the meantime, I think this is a good time to mention that the BEL, which replaces the BRK, has gotten a major overhaul, and so now it has a bunch of money in it. I believe it's about $10,000 or $15,000 in it or something like that. And whenever somebody rings the bell, they put 100 posts up on their BEL thread. Then they get 10% of whatever's in the pot. And so the pot is therefore infinite. I mean, I suppose that if enough people ring the pot and nobody puts any money in, eventually you might only get, $100. But so I think you get something like $1,500 the last time you rang the bell.
Yeah. So post number 600 was almost 2 days maybe after the bell program had been reworked, and I think 1,500 was what I had, what was granted to me.
Okay. So and I think it's all in Ethereum. So it's and Stephen doesn't like crypto.
In my case, I sold it almost instantly.
Yeah, fair. The thing I'm trying to say is if it's all in Ethereum and then Ethereum goes way up, then there'll be a lot more in it.
Yeah, and that's going to happen.
I don't know. Probably.
No, that's Stephen editorializing. Let's not go there.
I suspect it will, but that's another story for another day. Who all is going to come out here? Who is the boot camp for? And so, boy, you guys are both thinking a lot. I'm going to say, first off, I want to talk about Clayton. I think when he showed up here, he was 18 in a day, and but it's like he was all about permaculture, and he grew on the boot camp in a big way, and on the evenings and weekends he worked on his plot, and then he asked if he could. We had a few different people here who asked if they could go and be an intern for Helen Attow, and Helen said no, except for Clayton. And so Clayton went and was an intern with Helen for 6 months or something like that. And she felt it was great. But it was like the difference with Clayton was he was putting in 60 or 70 hour weeks doing stuff. And I think the other candidates, they were like 40 hours, 39.9 hours, and they're good. And so I think, that is an interesting metric to go by. I suspect that if we had another person like that wanted to, because Helen's kind of like, no, I'm not, because when this happened, Helen was like, no, I'm not taking interns. I'm not doing interns. And then, Clayton asked, and she said, well, I'm not doing interns. And then I said to her, like, he puts in these 70-hour, 80-hour weeks. He does this stuff not just for the 40 hours, but above and beyond. And so she gave him a shot. But despite him being young, and young people can be, challenging, he was great. And I kind of feel like the great thing about being 18 a day and coming out here is being debt-free. Because I kind of feel like the boot camp and debt is probably going to not be a good mix. I think another one is that I know we made a podcast a long time ago about the click. And it's like, I think people who've experienced the click, I think that the boot camp is the perfect place. Like, come and be here forever. And because you have to. There's, like, where else are you going to go? You have to go someplace where you can grow all your own food and build yourself a home out of natural materials. You need to get out of the brown cloud, and so there's that. I would have to say that some people who've recently gotten divorced, it could be a good option. Like I had my worky job, I was doing all this stuff, and I had all these obligations, but now that's all being liquidated, and I'm going to do a fresh start. And we could be that fresh start. So what do you guys think who's the kind of person that would be great? Somebody who's 29. I don't know why, but it seems like some of the best people that have ever been here have been 29. Josiah was 29. I don't know how old Jennifer was when she was here, but Josiah, who built the greenhouse, I think he was 29 when he was here. He was amazing. I don't know what was the story of his life to make it so that he could be here and whatever. I try not to pry, but it does seem like we've had a lot of really great people here that were 29.
So a consistent theme that I'm noticing with the people you mentioned are that they have a healthy dose of give a shit. And I think that's where, like, there was something that you mentioned while I was here during WWOOF week, and it was how if you're going to have a first aid kit, it should be by the door and it should be noticeable, and that had been brought up several times, and it still wasn't necessarily by the door, and so I took it upon myself to go build a shelf and put it by the door. And I
immediately 20 times better.
Sure. It was an improvement. It helped. It was what the community here needed at that moment was, hey, let's get this shelf built and let's put this first aid kit on the shelf. It's going to take 30 minutes. You can do it at lunch after you've eaten. You just eat quick, go down to the shop, build it, put it in, move on with your life. And it sounds like those are the types of things where if you're a person who finds yourself going kind of crazy over the little details and you want things to be right, and you have a passion for doing things correctly and getting the job done, that's something that like a skill that would be put to good use here. I think it's a skill to care about the details and get things done. Kind of going back to a little bit the work of the boot camp. The boot camp is kind of what you make of it.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
You can come here and you can slack off. I'll use that term. You can slack off. You can shirk your responsibilities. You can just be there, show up, get some hours, and in my mind, in my personal opinion, that's kind of taking advantage of the system. On the other hand, you can look at it and you can say, okay, well, we spent the morning gardening, and that was great and that was fun. Now what? What else? What are we going to do next? Oh, well, everyone else is doing XYZ. Great, I can do that. Or it's after dinner now. Now what? Well, I'm going to go build another shelf, or I'm going to go plant something, or harvest seeds, or there's a million things. And that's the thing that I'm here for, really, is badge bits. For anyone who hasn't heard, the SKIP program is awesome, Skills to Inherit Property, and there's a bunch of verifiable adult merit badges that you can engage in and complete and post on Permies, and it's a lot of fun. And a place like Wheaton Labs has, I don't have a fro at home. I can't cleave shakes with a fro, which is a badge bit, without that tool. And I could buy the tool and use it for the badge bit, and maybe beyond that. Or I could be a sepper or a boot and come to Wheaton Labs and knock out that BB. And that's, as I said, that's what I'm here for. Like, my number one thing that I want to get done is cleaning a rocket mass heater for the season, cleaning the ash out of a rocket mass heater, because that puts me pretty darn close to getting my rocket badge. And those are things where, with a little bit of planning in advance and communicating with Paul and Stephen, hey, can I do this? Will you let me? Is it cool if? And it's like, oh yeah, that sounds great. We'll definitely let you work with us here and there and do this and that. And so if you're a person who maybe lacks resources or lacks, I'm a person who likes constant feedback and, hey, tell me what you want, tell me how to do this, and then I feel like I'm off to the races after that. If you're like that, this is a great place. There's a lot of judgment-free explanation.
Oh no, there'll be lots of judgment. I'm going to provide so much judgment. I'm going to judge you.
Stephen doesn't judge me when he explains.
I will.
Okay.
I'll leave that up to Paul.
But, you know, there's a lot of things where you as an individual can come be a part of something more than just yourself.
Thank you. That's what I was going to say.
You're not here as you can be. There are people. I have seen those people who are here as an individual. And sometimes it's okay. I have not seen an individual mindset be great here. But when I see people who are willing to just jump right in, throw down for anything, and work really hard as they want to, but who want to work really hard and do the good things, those people just really excel.
I like the part where you're saying, like, people get out of it what they want to get out of it. And sometimes all a person wants to do is, can I just be invisible to the outer world for a month? And I'm on a flavor of vacation. And I'm going to just coast. I'm going to just be in the boot camp. I'll just go along with whatever they're doing for the day. And really, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to reset my brain. But I think that the thing is that after you've kind of coasted for a month, in a way, just by coasting here for a month, not putting in any extra effort, just coasting, I think that, you know, you've been reprogrammed in a bit. And then if you stick to your coasting program, about 3 months in, you find yourself doing more. And about 6 months in, I think anybody that I've seen that's been here more than 6 months generally puts in at least 55 hours a week on stuff, maybe 60 hours a week. They just, if it's the evening and that thing over there, then they just go, I'm just going to, you know, it's not worth mentioning to anybody.
No.
I'm just going to
do it.
I'm going to knock it out.
It needs to be done.
And this is part of their coasting program. Now granted, having somebody show up full of permaculture on day one and, like, you know, 40 hours a week isn't enough. I need 100 hours a week, of stuff. And we've had people like that. About 1 out of 30 are like, this is my alternate to a gym. Please, where do you need the ditches dug? And I don't want to use the excavator. I want to wear out 4 shovels. And so there's some people like that. But I think for every person that shows up and they have listened to all the podcasts and they're ready to go, or they used to be a construction worker and they are ready to go. For every one of those, I think that there's like 2 or 3 people where it's like in a daze, and it's like, I'm just going to go with the flow forever because I'm leaving a mess behind. And so I'm looking at Stephen now. You could just see these people where there's a story there and you don't want to hear it. Whatever is the mess they're leaving behind. And it's like, it's just delicious to be here away from that mess. And I just want to put in my time here, and eventually they kind of become reprogrammed to be more like one of us. And it's gonna. So Stephen, how close am I to the truth in your experience?
I don't want train wrecks to be here.
And there have been some of those.
Yeah,
there have been some of those, and they generally don't last.
Yeah, and they find their way out of here on their own. Here's my wish list, and it goes back to what Clay had mentioned before about someone who wants to contribute to something greater than themselves. If somebody hasn't figured out what that's going to be yet, Wheaton Labs is a great candidate to fill that. That's kind of like why I've been able to stick around as long as I have, because I see it as a worthwhile thing for the rest of the world. I see it as something worth putting my energy and attention and life into. So I say this to everybody. I want this place to succeed, so I'm going to contribute as much as I can. So that's why I'm here. And I think that if somebody else is like, I know a little bit about this, like back to the land or organic gardening, or what's it like to be a master gardener, but not use chemicals. Like what is it like to really live off grid? There's this place that could really use what I have to offer, whatever that is. That's like a core value I would prefer to see in people. Mm-hmm. And the people that come back to this place time and time again, whether it's Clay, whether it is Des, who sort of, like his orbit passes, but he's like a comet in the world right now.
That's right.
He flares brightly like a flaming arrow, and then he comes back around to Wheaton Labs for a little while, and then his arc carries him on, But whenever he's here, he makes a substantive, positive contribution. Yeah. He put in his time, 2+ years as, the high commander, whatever his role was, but he was here, made a great, positive, memorable impact. You can thank him for the solarium, let's put credit where credit's due. And he came up with that maximum that you share with all the boots, on day one. Go with the flow. That is another core value. Somebody who's like, all right, I'm flexible and adaptable enough to make it. And this has nothing to do with their own personal situation, like, coming from a divorce. Being debt-free is an asset. I won't deny that. That also helps you change your mindset and cultivate some of these values that we want to have here, where you're contributing to a whole. And the fact that Paul, you are taking on a lot of the expenses so that people who come here, their expenses stay low and their financial pressure is not on them as much. I think that people who have a lot of financial pressure are not going to do well here, simply because in the modern world, in this culture that we have going on, that is a defining, domineering aspect of typical civilized life is paying to exist on this planet. Like, you have taken on a lot of that for anybody who comes in the door, so that becomes less of a factor in their life. So the thing I'm looking for would be those personal values that match up with contributing to, whatever if you want to call it a community or an initiative or some kind of idea or concept that is bigger than yourself. You're like, okay, I'm ready to pour what I have into this other thing so that it continues to thrive and I'm part of that. Those are the things that I look for in people. And I think that somebody who needs a place to put their energy like that is somebody who's going to do well here. That's what I think.
I want to give a supporting thing for the train wreck people. And so
okay, all right.
So, I mean,
I was a bit harsh there, sure.
So what I want to say is that I feel like some people, their life is a train wreck by their own standards, and they might think it's dominantly their environment. And it might be that when we look at such a train wreck, that it's train wreck light, perhaps, but maybe, and it's entirely plausible that when they arrive here, they're going to try to turn over a new leaf. Mm-hmm. And I think I have seen some people where I kind of heard their stories eventually, and we were the transformative piece. That their life before getting here was a flavor of train wreck, and then when they moved on, they were a whole new person, a better person.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think that if somebody wants to stick with that aspect of their life that is troublesome to them and that defines them, that prevents them from moving on or whatever. If they want to stick with that as, like you mentioned somebody who's divorced, like constantly bitter and spewing. It's like, it's like you drink poison and you expect the other person to die. Like, I don't want that to come here.
Yeah.
All right.
No. I agree.
That doesn't help that person.
But those people go down the road fairly quickly, one way or another.
I certainly hope they do.
Yeah.
Because it's not, I guess I'm talking about this from the high commander's point of view. That's an aspect that I have to manage and oversee and sort of build into whatever kind of team comes along here. So I do speak a little harshly about that sort of thing because that's something that I would have to face in my particular role right now. So,
true, that's true. And so maybe I shouldn't be too inviting of the train wreck.
I don't know.
You're the last to deal with it.
Okay, if somebody's shit has hit the fan in their life and they need a new start, come here so long as you are willing to not let that define your experience.
Ooh, good one.
That's where I would be coming from, because there have been people here who have just totally ruined my day because they won't let that stuff go.
Right.
And that's going to bring the whole team down. If we have an event coming up or whatever, it's going to permeate the atmosphere of the entire event.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd rather not see that happen.
It can be poison. It can be total poison.
You've mentioned before that there are people, that we are not a therapeutic environment necessarily.
Right.
For people who need some professional help. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
So if you don't come here if you think that it's going to solve every single traumatic affliction that you are dealing with.
I feel like some of the people that I've seen come through that they see coming here is a little bit like what when I was a kid I heard it as running away to the circus. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Like my life that I'm in right now is so bad, I'm going to run away and join the circus and, do some sort of grunt job there or something, and that's going to be my new life. And so I think what some people do is it's like, the life I'm in is too disgusting. I need to just check out from it entirely. I need to go somewhere else.
And my point is, then yes, make it your new life when you come here. you don't need to continue to bring that into your life by I don't know, by reliving those experiences, whether in your brain or in, you know, like in the conversations or in the way you deal with other members of the team. So if you are willing to really join the circus, then yeah, it's going to be a beautiful experience for you. But don't say you're going to join the circus and just drag all that extra baggage and not want to be done with it when you get here. Now, a lot of people aren't in that situation when they have those kinds of experiences in their life. I totally understand that. But for those of you who can find a way or learn how to do it while you're here, even though we're not a professional therapeutic environment,
Right.
Then you're going to thrive here. Because we will take anybody who comes in the door, so long as you are willing to contribute to the team. I mean, that's what I've seen,
Right.
And that's what I try to cultivate as the high commander. So those are the kinds of things that I would caution people about. Yeah, if you're ready to make a new start, then yeah, make a new start, but don't rehash it or relive it while you're here and say you're making a new start.
I would have to say that while anybody is here, we have very high standards. We have high expectations. You know, and we are very, very careful about resentments, and which can be a little complicated. And so, and then every once in a while, somebody shows up and they feel strongly that the way that we do things is wrong, and they're going to stand against it. And then, generally, they choose to go down the road themselves. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what can I say? For those people, we're going to get a 2-star review. The Fouches clearly gave us a 1-star review. You know, there was a gate 2 miles away from the event we attended, which was locked, and so therefore we hate this fucker. But I would say that there's some people that have gone down the road and they would leave us a 1-star review. But I also kind of feel like for every person giving us a 1-star review, we have, I don't know, 20 people giving us a 5-star review. And so Clay is nodding his head, which you cannot hear.
Yes, I agree with this. Yes.
Yeah. And so there's going to be, we cannot be perfect for everybody, but I do think that in order for us to be able to move forward with our designs, we have to have really high standards. And so if a person is a train wreck and they are thinking like, I need a change, I need to live my life a completely different way, and it seems like they could live within our standards and they're willing to try, I think that could work. I think I've seen it work. I love the thing where that gal sent us her son and from Europe, and he was here for 1 month. And afterwards, she said, I sent you a boy and you sent me back a man. And I think he was 18 or 19 when he was here, but I'm not sure, but I think it was a lot of video games and, you know, before. And after, it was a lot of, I'm going to build all the things. And so, and it does seem like while he was here, I witnessed that transformation. When he arrived, he coasted. He was like, I'm here, you know, whatever, I'm going to... And then by the time he left, he was getting shit done. And so, I don't know, I think I'm proud of that. I think that is an excellent example of what we're all about. And so, yeah, there's going to be some people that are going to show up right out of the gate. They know what they want to do. They want to get stuff done. They've got all kinds of ideas. Great. And then there's some people that are going to just be like, I just need to change something. And I need to, you know, I don't want to be a train wreck anymore. I mean, you're making laughy, giggly sounds, but I think
I think that is. I don't want my commentary here to dissuade people of that nature. If you, as an individual, would like to make some changes in your life, if you have come to the realization that the path you're on is not for you, I'm particularly thinking about young folks here who have a long runway ahead of them. If you're going to college maybe and you're like, wow, this sucks, and I can't imagine what the hell else I'm going to do, but like, that's what you do, is go to college and get a worky job and pay off maybe the debt you incurred in college or a mortgage, or maybe you just like to... If you're looking at that life and you're thinking, wow, that kind of seems shitty and miserable, then maybe experiencing something like Wheaton Labs and being a part of the boot camp is the right fit for you, because, boy, you see an alternate path that's accessible. It's not $1 million in a yacht, that's an alternate path, but that's not easily attainable by most people. Whereas, man, being a boot, learning the skills to inherit property, building natural buildings, heating yourself with 1/10 the wood that you gathered for free from your own yard. Like those are skills and things that you can experience firsthand right here, and that might be for you. And so if you're unhappy, if you're a train wreck, sure, come with the right attitude. Be open to the change, go with the flow, do the things, and see where that takes you. Because I do. I think that this is the right place for people who are ready to do something different.
This podcast is continued in part 3.
Hey, this is T. Blankenship. Have you seen the new video of Wheaton Labs? It is permaculture awesomeness with all new and improved things like more rocket mass heaters, easy bake coffin, Willy Wonka, rocket cooktop 2.0, and the truly passive greenhouse. To see more, go to permies.com/tour. Again, that is permies.com/tour.